Hey, welcome to the Elle Russ Show. My name is Elle Russ, and I am a #1 best-selling author and master coach. My intention is to inspire, educate, and motivate you with weekly content featuring amazing guests and solo episodes. Visit my website, elleruss.com, to learn more about me, my courses, free masterclasses, partner discounts, and much more. Enjoy the show. Tony Endelman, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good. Well, we're both a fan, although you worked with him closely. Dr. Robert Glover, who I've interviewed, 3 or 4 times over the years, always a huge crowd pleaser because of his work on people pleasers. And of course, he created a bunch of men's groups and is wonderful. And I know he's been your mentor for quite a while, which led you to develop this book called The Big Stick, Collected and Applied Wisdom from the Teachings of Dr. Robert Glover.
That's right.
I love that. We'll get into all of it, but let's what's funny is like you had sort of a similar thing, like a lot of people pleasers do, when they're finally why does the same type of woman, why is this happening? And so tell us about the questions you were asking in a toxic relationship you had that finally made you go, hold on a minute, I think I need to look at this.
Yeah, totally. I wouldn't even call it a relationship. I would call it, more of a situationship. But I of course wanted it to be a relationship. But I had just moved to, and I assume you're referring to the story I tell in the introduction to The Big Stick. But
yeah,
I had just kind of blown up my life. I was living in Omaha, my hometown. I'd been really stagnant and bored there. I was becoming pretty unhappy and had gone through some pretty traumatic events. I lost my father suddenly and unexpectedly. So I kind of decided I was just like, what am I doing? I need to make some changes in my life. So I sort of blew up my life and I moved to New Orleans, which is where I live now. And that was the first major change I made, was changing my environment, which I kind of thought might. But
you went right with it, didn't you? You went right.
I also thought moving to this city that I found really magical would be the cure for all my woes. And that was not the case. I brought all my bullshit with me. And, I started repeating the same unhealthy patterns. I got into another unhealthy job. And as you mentioned, I started repeating the same toxic relationship patterns. And, I started dating this woman, and I very quickly became very infatuated with her, as I did. Infatuation is the right word, certainly, but I idealized her. I put her up on a pedestal. I, bent over backwards to try and please her and win her love and win her affection and win her attention. And she wasn't very nice to me, and I didn't see her as much as I would have liked. She was a busy single mom, and there were a lot of red flags that I just ignored because I was so infatuated. And I became very needy, and I turned her off, obviously, to the point where she dumped me very, very, very cruelly. I mean, she sent me this very nasty text message. I actually still remember what it said verbatim, but it kind of rattled me to my core. It was very vicious. And, I don't know why, but, in the past, because this wasn't the first time a woman had, this wasn't the first time a woman had unremorsefully, tossed me from her life. But in the past, I just kind of would, I was always sad and heartbroken, but I always dismissed the woman as oh, she's crazy or she's just a bitch or whatever. And which I think, we tend to do that. But this time around, I said, no, no, no. Like, this is, I need to examine my own behavior here because this shit keeps happening. So,
Yeah, and I want to just throw out a couple of those questions you asked yourself, which was, why does this keep happening? Why do I constantly fall for the same type of woman? Why do I think a woman will complete me? Why do I love women that don't want me back? Why am I needy? And then this is a great one for everyone. Why am I so heartbroken over a woman who wasn't even nice to me, especially when I was nice to her? Boy, that's classic. No matter who you are, that happens to all of us. So those are some of the questions, right? You were like, okay, that those are legitimate questions. If you're out there listening, you see a pattern like this, you need to also ask yourself the same questions, because then you'll get some help. So, and I just want to start too here by saying, people have probably heard Robert Glover, but for those who haven't, he wrote a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And to just blanketly explain the way you do the nice guy syndrome, it's an anxiety and shame-based disorder characterized by problematic behaviors like caretaking, people-pleasing, giving to get, repressing emotions, avoiding conflict, and constantly seeking the approval. So that all makes sense with those questions you're asking. And then
right
after you ask those questions for yourself, how the hell did you know where to go from there?
I didn't. I had no fucking clue where to go. But I did what most people do. I took to the internet. I became an internet detective and just kind of went down the rabbit hole. And I had already started to do that previously because I was trying to figure out her behavior. Is she a narcissist? Is she a sociopath? This and that. And then you're like, well, this isn't serving me. I'm never going to find out the answer. And, so at some point, like we were just talking about, like I had to ask myself, what role did I play? And, what, what's my problem? Why do I keep repeating that? All those questions I asked myself. So I just started looking for answers. I started, reading a lot about relationships and relationship patterns and got really into, like I read Attached. So I started learning a lot about it, attachment theory. And, I read, there's a great book called Attached. And then there's another great book called The Human Magnet Syndrome. And I started going down that rabbit hole, but everywhere I went, whether it was, some blogger in the manosphere or, some forum on Reddit or YouTube videos. It was like everywhere I went, everyone was recommending the same book. Yeah. And that book was No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Glover. And so, that's where the rabbit hole led me. It led me to Dr. Glover.
Let's talk about. Go ahead.
No, and so I picked up that book, and I know you're familiar with the book, and you recommend it to a lot of people, and the same thing that probably happens to everyone you recommended it to, and all my clients. Same thing happened to me. It completely whacked me upside the head.
Yeah, it's a life changer, and like you say in the book, you're like, I know Dr. Glover may say differently, but you feel he changed your life. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I am. Yeah, I mean, I say in the book, yeah, I do. I credit him with changing my life, and I am, eternally grateful to the man. But he would probably say, no, I gave you the tools to change your own life.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about some nice guy characteristics. They're fundamentally dishonest because they repress their feelings. They say what they think other people want to hear. Okay. Yeah. They're secretive. They'll hide things that they think might upset someone, right? As Dr. Glover says, they live by the motto, like, if at first you don't succeed, hide the evidence.
Right.
And then here's the other one that I'd love you to give an example of how you did this. Nice guys are manipulative, and they're manipulative because they tend to have difficulty making their own needs a priority, asking for what they want in clear and direct ways. So what they do is they frequently resort to manipulation when trying to fulfill their needs. So technically, like, they're controlling. And that sounds weird because you think of a nice guy, passive or whatever. Tell us, in your personal experience and hindsight, after you dug through your pattern and your garbage, how did you do that? What was your way of manipulation?
I was a big one of the concepts from the book that tends to hit guys over the head the most is covert contracts, as Dr. Glover calls them.
Yeah, explain that. I love that.
Well, as Dr. Glover defines it, there are three nice guys operate by three covert contracts. The first one is, if I am a good guy, then everyone will like me and love me. And add to that, the women who I desire will desire me. Covert contract number 2 is, if I meet everyone's needs without having to ask, then everyone will meet my needs without having to ask.
They'll figure it out. They'll figure out all your needs. Yeah.
Yep. And number 3, covert contract number 3 is, if I am a good guy and do everything right, then I will live a smooth, problem-free life. None of those covert contracts work. They're all based on a faulty paradigm. But nice guys think they should work. But to answer your question, if I was to sum up covert contracts just in a really simple way, it's giving to get. Mm-hmm. And that's what I would do a lot. I tell this is a really kind of very basic example that I share in the book, but like the woman who we were talking about earlier from the introduction to the book, like I said, like I would bend over backwards to please her and make her happy, but there were always strings attached. Like I always expected something in return. And so like a really simple example that I describe in the book was, one day she told me her laptop like took a shit and stopped working. And so I said, oh, well, I'd be happy to, take that to the mall for you and go to the Apple store and get it fixed for you. Wow. And that's what I did. Like I spent a whole day. I took her computer to the mall, which is like, a special brand of hell, going to a suburban mall for me. I waited in line at the Apple store. I waited for them to fix her computer, and it was like this big ordeal, but I didn't care, but I wasn't doing it out of the goodness of my heart, right? I was doing it because I wanted her to see what a good man I was, right. What an amazing boyfriend I would be. And quite frankly, I wanted her to like have sex with me. Like sure. I had it like all worked out in my head. Like I would bring the computer.
I'll do these valiant things and be this amazing guy.
Yeah. I would bring the computer back to her house and it'd be fixed, and she would, invite me in and romance would ensue. And of course that never happened, but I had it all worked out in my head. I had all these unspoken expectations, mm-hmm. and those expectations are almost never met. And that just causes negativity and frustration and resentment and anger. So that was my big thing, giving to get. I did that a lot. I would just give, whether big things or small things, I would just give, and I would just expect things in return, but I would never make those expectations known.
Okay, here's a question I have, because I know a couple of reformed people pleaser guys. Okay.
Yes.
Now, granted, I know this is like a process, right, for anybody.
Sure.
Okay, I'm just going to say it like I think it, and it's not going to come across right. But part of me is like, if you got to go learn to be a normal human being, how manufactured is that? And does it actually become inherent or not? Because what I sense is that some reformed people pleasers, it's more of an intellectual, like they have to stop themselves, understand the situation, what they're doing, and make a different decision, which, just side note, then I would say as a woman, I'd be like, I'd never want to fucking date a former people pleaser ever, never. And I wouldn't. And I'm sorry, don't mean to rip on you or anything, you know what I mean? But do you get where I'm coming from? Do you see my point of view on that?
I do.
So help me understand that. Like, sure. Do you feel that after all this time, it's become inherent and you've become this, or is it still work like maybe it is for some alcoholics who are consciously making decisions every day? And then some alcoholics get to a point where they're like, oh, I'm so over it. I could go hang out at a bar every hour of the day and never have a problem. Right. So yes. Where are you at with that? And how do you feel about that with the people you've worked with? Because it's something I've noticed in a few reformed, on their way, working on it for a couple of years, people pleasers, but it
Yes.
seems still very manufactured. And that seems fake too.
Mm. Well, that's well, first of all,
It's a tough one. I'm throwing it at you.
no, I take zero offense to it. It's a good question. I think I mean, Dr. Glover even makes it abundantly clear that this is a lifelong journey. I mean, you know, and I think when guys first read the book and like first reach out for coaching, a lot of them say like, well, how long is this going to take? When am I going to become integrated? And I'm like, if you're lucky, it'll take the rest of your life, because that means you've made a lifelong commitment to personal growth, which is a good thing. To answer your question, though, I think it's hard to say. I mean, it's probably.
Do you feel it's manufactured for
basis.
you? Or do you feel you've been doing it so long, it kind of transferred into an inherent thing where it's automatic and it's not too much thought for you? Or do you even do the things anymore and have to stop yourself, or are they gone?
A lot of the behaviors are completely gone, but every once in a while, I still catch myself doing certain, nice guy stuff. But that's the key. Like,
right.
I'm such a more conscious person now that I am able to catch myself and change course.
And I would say that that's the other side of my argument, bagging on the potential manufacturedness of it, is that, well, on the other side of it, someone who's done all of that work and is still doing it and is committed to it is more self-aware than most people. And there's something to be said about that too. That's a positive. So,
well, I agree. I mean, even though, like, to your point, like, I mean, I think manufactured is kind of the wrong word to use. I think, I mean, yes, ideally you want to get to a place where this stuff is second nature, and you don't have to think about it. But I mean, if you read like Dr. Glover's book, and I know you have, there's so much stuff in there, like nice guys are nice guys by no fault of their own. Like these are beliefs and paradigms and behaviors they picked up early in childhood. And so changing all of those things and changing your entire life paradigm, I mean, it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of stuff to do, and there's a lot of stuff to remember, and there's a lot of times you do need to catch yourself. So I've shared a story before on here. I'll share it again right now, because it's someone I know who's working on their people pleasing, doing a really great job. But at the time they were dating online, they had a wonderful 2-hour conversation with a woman, but they didn't feel like they wanted to meet them afterwards. They had a lovely conversation. I remember this story. Yeah. Right. Because you probably heard the podcast. And I just, for the people that haven't heard it. And so we're walking, and he's like, yeah, I don't want to meet her, but like, I don't know. I talked to her for like 2 hours, as if talking to her for her 2 hours is like obligated. And I was like, why would you meet her? Why would you meet a woman you don't want to meet? Why would you drive 2 hours to go down to the South Bay to meet someone? First of all, that's fucking mean. You are lying to her. You're wasting her day. So all you're doing is going down there for the potential projection of what you think she might think of you, because you had a 2-hour conversation and didn't meet her. This is online dating. Like, don't meet her. And I said at the time, I said, look, this is a people-pleasing thing coming up right now. And I'm glad you told me you're not meeting her. Like, you can't, he realized it, he got it. But just for the people listening, like, that's the kind of inner turmoil that's happening inside of that person. They're literally going, I don't want to, like, it's a stranger. And they're still going, well, I don't want this impression out there of me potentially in this world. And I feel bad. And you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. And so it can be even something small like that with a stranger. It doesn't have to be, right, like in an embedded romantic relationship. These can be just daily bullshit things that happen that come up. Right. For sure. I mean, I mean, really, this is all about Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. Yeah, I mean, we don't nice guys and recovering nice guys. They just don't want to rock the boat. They don't want
Hmm.
anybody to be upset with them. They
Right.
want to be a good guy and have a smooth, problem-free life.
Let
But
me ask you about the, because some of the stuff we've talked about that's obvious, but there's a few things that, you mentioned in your book, and which is expanding on Robert Glover's work and your own personal experience. But one of the things I think that would surprise people when we talk about nice guys is that they're, aside from manipulation, is this, that they're full of rage. They might deny ever getting angry, but there's like pent up frustration and resentment, which kind of, so
yeah,
I think that that's very hard for us to see, like, oh, nice guy, angry. Wait, so can you kind of maybe break that down for us and give us some examples of how that either manifested for you or how you've seen it in people that you've coached and worked with?
totally. And well, and I also think there's like a new wave of this going on in the last few years, but like just and I'll get to that in a second, but like, yeah, I mean, kind of like going back to covert contracts. I mean, when you when you operate when you constantly are operating with unspoken strings attached, when you have unspoken expectations, when you're giving to get and expecting something in return, and those expectations aren't met, it just causes resentment and frustration and anger. And um, and it never occurs to nice guys to say anything or set boundaries or make their expectations really clear. So those experiences start to accumulate and pile up. And so does the resentment, you know? Like, even just going back to that stupid example I gave, like when I went to all that trouble to get that woman's computer fixed and I got nothing in return,
Mm-hmm.
I just drove home like bitter and
Yeah.
frustrated and angry. Like, why, why didn't she like, why didn't she like want to have sex with me? Or why didn't she invite me in? Like, it just made me angry.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like all this like giving to get, all these unspoken expectations leads to resentment, you know, all this approval seeking behavior. And when you're constantly seeking the validation and approval of others, trying to get externally validated, and you don't, that leads to resentment. I mean, this anger and resentment is most prominent in our relationships with women. you
Mm-hmm.
know we usually despise what we turn into our god or goddess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's a new wave of this going around, particularly with the rise of social media and dating apps. I think that a lot of men see I think men need to get the fuck off the internet, to be honest. I think that would do them a lot of good. But men get on the internet and they see women who seemingly have like no discernible skills or talent, getting everything they want in life, manipulating men, posting all this shit on social media, or making a fortune on OnlyFans, or
Mm-hmm.
just taking advantage of men. And honestly, like I said, that's just men need to get off the internet and go like interact with women in the real world. But the men see this on the internet and they get angry. They get angry that women seem to have all this power, or seem to be so entitled, or seem to get whatever they want whenever they want. Just,
Which is funny because the guy who's thinking that,
yeah,
it's
we
also like,
created this monster.
yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, you guys created it. Also, that's what you want, and in your wanting of it, you're angry. Like, it's just, yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, you just see a lot of anger. I mean, I think there's a lot of anger because you see all this like men going their own way, and the incel movement and all that shit. That's really, it's just at its core, that's just a lot of angry men who are fed up with women. for
Tell us
whatever
about.
reason. But I think a lot of it has to do with dating apps and social media and that kind of shit.
I remember this would have been a perfect example of a people pleaser, but I remember one time I was having a conversation with a guy that I had met online, and we're talking. But while we're talking, I looked at his profile and I had somehow missed that he wanted kids, and I don't. So I knew that would be like an immediate, like, 'cause that'll never work out, right? That relationship's going to end at some point, so let's not start it. So I said to him on the phone, I said, "Oh my gosh, I was having a nice conversation with him. I said, "Oh my gosh, I feel really bad. I feel like I wasted your time. I would have never reached out and had a conversation with you had I seen this, and I don't know how I missed it, but it says you want children."
Yeah.
Now, we were already like an hour in a conversation, and it was really nice. And he's like, "Well, I mean, it's not like he was."
Yeah.
And yeah. And I said, "No." I said,
Yes.
"Let me tell you something. Don't you dare change your desires for me."
Yeah.
Like right in the phone call, he was ready to be like, "Well, I don't necessarily. No, do you want kids? You want them. So then go for that, motherfucker. Don't just because you're talking to a nice girl and you want to get her in bed or date her or whatever. We are going to have this problem. It will end the relationship later. Let's be smart and logical about it now and not even go there." Right. But I could see him people pleasing, trying to get like, what the fuck?
Well, he was,
no, man.
Yeah. Well, I have two things to say to that. One is, we don't nice guys don't think very abundantly. So he probably was like, "Oh my God, I this beautiful woman, Elle, is interested in me. What if I don't want to ruin this? I might not meet another beautiful woman."
Right. So let me just take down the things I want in life to accommodate.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because I used to do the exact same thing. I do not want to get married. Like, I think marriage is fucking insane. I don't know why people get married. That's just my opinion. It's not something that I want to do. And for the longest time, I hid that about myself.
Sure. Because you
I
knew
would
that
be on dates with
you need to be
women.
rejected. Yeah, you knew you'd be rejected for it.
Yeah, I would be on dates with women, and they'd ask me if I want to get married and kids, and I would lie, and that's so stupid, because like, what
you're hurting yourself.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so what? So then what? Like, what we actually go down the path towards getting married, and then I either have to tell the truth way down the line, or what most nice guys would do is actually go along with it and get married and do some shit they don't want to do. So, but yeah, I used to lie about the same kind of stuff,
Yeah, it's just interesting. So tell us a few stories about some people you've coached and some of the transformations, some of the 180s from people pleaser to strong boundary drawer.
Oh, wow. Geez. Yeah, I mean, I've been coaching full time. I've been coaching full time for 5 years, and then I was doing it part time for a couple years before I went full time. So, geez, I've worked with, hundreds of nice guys. I've one-on-one clients, and then I also have a group coaching program called Integrated Man University. But I mean, one of my first ever clients is coming to mind right now. He, I don't want to say his name for confidentiality purposes, but he was from a small town in Louisiana, and never. It was a little bit sheltered, and a very quintessential nice guy, and didn't want to live. He did want to, but he couldn't figure out how to live on his terms, or he never wanted to rock the boat, never wanted to piss off his parents. Really shy and introverted around women. He was a virgin when we started working together, and he read No More Mr. Nice Guy, and he told me he didn't even have the balls to reach out to me. It took him 6 months to have the courage to set up a call with me. And he finally did. And he's been my client for like 5 years now. And the guy has just completely blown up his life in the best possible way. He's, dating multiple women. He's, standing up for himself, living on his terms. He moved out of small town Louisiana to Austin. He found a remote job so he could travel the world. He went from really shy and introverted and scared to, walking up to women at, bars and other public places and introducing himself. Started taking dance lessons, and really immersed himself in his hobbies. Like he's living on his terms, and it's
He must
great
be
to
so
see.
relieved.
Me or him?
Both.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, I just love seeing that kind of stuff, like just clients completely transforming every area of their life. But yeah, I mean, it is a relief when you finally, you feel some guilt at first, because like, when you start making your needs a priority and setting boundaries and doing what you want and standing up for yourself and your values, it's weird at first. So you kind of feel guilty, but once you get over that, and once you realize like the way you're behaving actually is a very respectful, very loving way to be, you kind of get over that guilt. And yeah, it is a relief eventually.
I love that. And we'll put it in the show notes, of course, but I love on your website, which is Tony Endelman, and that's Endelman, TonyEndelman.com. The first thing you see is a photo of you and it says, "You're not as fucked as you think you are."
Yeah. Well,
and that is true. I mean, listen, there's been so many people, not just Dr. Glover himself, but his groups, your groups, what you do, the coaching you do, given that example of your first client. If you attend to this shit, you can do it. You can develop confidence, right? That's my jam. And I know that you can gain it. You can attain it. And so if you're out there and you feel like these patterns are endless, you can't get out of this rut, you may need to go look at Tony's work and look into the No More Mr. Nice Guy. Like Dr. Robert Glover says too, there's nice girls as well. And so the No More Mr. Nice Guy book, or Tony's book, The Big Stick, I mean, these are for women too. If you read it, you're still going to get an essence of yourself and your behaviors.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the hero image and headline on my site. I mean, everything on my site I wrote for me. Everything's like a reminder to me. I used to think, well, I'm just fucked. Like I'm just fucked, and I'm just unlucky, and the universe is out to get me, and that's how I used to think. And that's how a lot of nice guys think. They have scarcity mindset. They think the world's out to get them. They think the world is a finite pie and there's not enough good things to go around. Constantly comparing themselves to others, and so, yeah, I mean, and sometimes, I still have shitty days where I have to remind myself, hey man, you're not as fucked as you think you are. Like, you've come a long way, baby,
Yeah, you have. Yeah. So you coach people on you do life coaching, you do relationship coaching, you do No More Mr. Nice Guy coaching. And like you said, abolish the shit out of your nice guy syndrome. And it is absolutely possible for everyone. And then everyone can get your book, The Big Stick, Collected and Applied Wisdom from the Teachings of Dr. Robert Glover. Is there anything I haven't shared? I mean, so you do some group coaching as well. Is that the No More Mr. Nice Guy coaching? And you do one-on-ones as well? Tell us how we can benefit from your expertise here.
Yeah, for sure. And I concur and wholeheartedly agree with this, but Dr. Glover makes it abundantly clear over and over and over again. If you want to deal with your nice guy syndrome, you cannot do this work alone.
Yes.
Like, you cannot overcome your toxic shame, overcome your self-limiting beliefs, challenge your life paradigm. You cannot do any of that stuff all by yourself. You have to find safe people who you can reveal yourself to. And that's true for men in general. Men need tribe, men need bros, homies, other guys to support them, encourage them, and lift them up. But you cannot do this work alone. And it's so true. And so, I find it very disheartening when guys read the book and they see that over and over again. You can't do this work alone. They read the book, they say the book whacked them upside the head and blew their minds, but they don't do anything. They don't take the first step. They don't even find safe people. So yeah, I mean, that's, more than anything, I'm a coach, and I guide these men, and I give them homework, and I push them, and I encourage them, and I hold them accountable. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm just a really safe person, and so I work with clients one-on-one, and then I have a program called Integrated Man University, which is a group program. It's a big online course, but the most important aspect of it is the group. We have group calls every week. And actually there's 60 guys in it now. I just had my 60th member sign up today. Wow. And it's amazing. We're like a little family, and every week we have group calls, and these guys come on and they reveal themselves and share parts of their lives, and they get feedback and support and encouragement, and a kick in the ass if necessary from the other men. And it's really powerful to see, but that's the first step. You got to find safe people. You really can't do this shit alone.
Yeah, it's tough work. Tony, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody get his book, The Big Stick. You can go to TonyEndelman.com. Of course, we'll put all the links to connect with him in the show notes. Anything you'd like to leave our audience with today before we go?
No, I like I said, I think if you're a woman and you're dating or in a relationship with a nice guy, I would say, just no, I would say, realize that it's not his fault, and sit down, have a conversation, give him the book, point him in the right direction. Like, we're not mind readers, and nice guys often don't know that what they're doing is wrong or unattractive or turning you off or pissing you off. So, be clearer and know that it's not his fault. And, because you can change, he can change if he puts in the work. So if you don't want to run or end your relationship, point him in the right direction, point him to Dr. Glover, point him to the book, point him to me, be really clear with him, and tell him you want to work on this. You want him to work on this stuff, not just for you and for the relationship, but for him, for himself, and then if you are a guy or a nice guy listening to this, like I said, man, first step is find safe people. You can reach out to me or go to Dr. Glover's site. He's got a bunch of certified coaches. So go find one, and see if they're a good fit, and work with a coach, join a men's group, just find safe people,
I assume you're attracting a different type of woman now.
Yeah. Well, I've gotten very, very clear on what I want and what I will not fucking tolerate. So, I have, I think that's really important. Get clear on your values, get clear on what you really want in a partner or in a relationship, get clear on what you will not tolerate, and use that stuff to guide you. And no matter how hard it is, because they're really hot or the sex is really good or whatever, like, the minute you see red flags or toxic behaviors, walk away, run. And you're right. Yeah. I don't, there's no way to like necessarily prevent it. Like, you're going to come across, so you're going to come across weird, rude, flaky, toxic people in the dating world, but there's no way to prevent that. But it is your responsibility to recognize that kind of stuff and walk away from it.
Just reminded me of a quick Quick story. I was on years and years ago, I was on like a second or third date with a guy, and he picked me up in his car and blah, blah, and then dropped me off. And then he texted me later and he was like, the text was like, I really don't like that red lipstick you were wearing. And by the way, whatever face powder you use, you got it all over the seat of my Porsche or whatever it was. And like, that's all the only text I needed to get. And I was like, yeah. So see, if I were a people pleaser, I'd be like, oh no, what do I do to correct it? Or I'm sorry, I won't wear that lipstick again. Or let me change my shit. And instead I was like, what kind of fucking asshole says that on it to a woman? And I was like, this says everything about this guy's personality. See you fucking later. I didn't even bring it up. I was just like, hey, it's not going to work out. You don't need to get in a discussion. You don't need to say to the person, hey, I think you're this because of this. You know who it is. Just bail. Just get the fuck out. You don't need to point it out. You need to get an argument with some asshole. Just leave. And same on women's side. If a woman exudes that behavior, you just get the fuck out, man. Those things are, that's only going to get much worse.
Yeah. I mean, was he trying to like neg you, like to try to make you more
No. You know what I think it was?
Was he just a dick?
I always liken it to like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, like Dennis, when he talks about the Dennis system, like compliment a girl, but then dial it back. Like you could say, like a guy would do a compliment backhand, like the whole, hey, you're really, really pretty. Thing. Yeah, like you're really pretty. You're not like model pretty, but you're really pretty. Like you see what I'm saying? You like just kind of shoot down with it. And so I didn't know. Or again, maybe that was a test for him to see, would I change? See, guys do that too, who are narcissistic or whatever, right? They'll do something or say something to see if you're going to, right? Like, oh, I like that nail polish, or I don't like that nail polish, to see if you wear it again or not. Do they have the control? So who knows what it was, but that was just so fucked up.
That's strange.
Which is so funny because earlier at the Starbucks, like someone was like, I love your red lipstick or whatever, I mean, just who cares? But that I wasn't trying, I'm not going to get into an argument or a debate. You just go, wow, that's the kind of person I'm dealing with here. Do I want to go further? The answer is no, I don't need to go fucking find out any more information. We're out, And
yeah.
So
I mean,
that's what people need to get more skilled at, like you're talking about. Just get out at the moment of that toxic heart drop into your stomach behavior, because it's only going to get worse.
Yes. Or as Dr. Glover likes to say, how you find them is how they are.
That's a perfect way to end this. Or Maya Angelou, right? When a person tells you who they are, believe them.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much, Tony. Everyone else, we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Elle. This was great. I appreciate the invitation.
Oh, thank you. Hey, listeners. Over the years, a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture, and it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/Elle Russ for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products, and I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.